الله تعالى في كتابه الكريم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم قل يا عبادي الذين أسرفوا على أنفسهم لا تقنطوا من رحمة الله إن الله يغفر الذنوب جميعا إنه هو الغفور الرحيم صدق الله العلي العظيم. Last night we spoke about Dua al-Iftitah, and the topic was surrounding the first line of Dua al-Iftitah, which is that Allahumma inni aftatiq al-thana'a bihamdik. And we tried to examine what this line means and why we start with praise and what is the meaning of praise and why did Allah Azza wa Jal use two words of praise come in Dua al-Iftitah narrated by Imam al-Mahdi in the same line, and we examined that yesterday. Today is the final night of Qadr. Unfortunately, for many it's the final night of Dua, because this is when everyone is charged up for Dua, and then after that we are lucky if we get a bit of qunut in Salah to get some Dua. These are opportunities that a person must use their best to put in maximum effort for. All the nights of Shahr Ramadan should be such. Of course, naturally speaking, on the nights of Qadr themselves, you feel more motivation to be in that state. That's very natural. And I think that is of the great mercy of Allah Azza wa Jalla. Look, when you come to look at the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you find, from one perspective, we need to understand our relationship with Him. We are mere slaves of Allah Azza wa Jalla, nothing more. We, compared to the creation of Allah Azza wa Jalla, are so insignificant. Yet we feel like we are everything. Don't get me wrong. The insan is a great creation. The insan is a great creation. And we are a great example of the great designer that Allah Azza wa Jal is. However, when you look at it from a bird's eye view, imagine we are a small dot within this great universe. Yet we feel like the universe revolves around us. Which, by the way, for a complete human, that is the case. When a person reaches completion, that would be the case. But this is where the insan can come up and down. If you take the example of Nabi Allah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam, yes, the universe revolves around him. And likewise in regards to the imams, the universe revolves around them, correct? But that is a human who found completion. That is a human who was kamil in their being as a human. What about a human that is far from that? How insignificant do they become then in that case? And that insignificance can usually come as a result of arrogance. You see, Amir al-Mu'mineen salawatullah alayhi says that angels were created with intellect and without a desire. Humans were created with intellect and desire. Animals were created with desire but without intellect. So for the human, if the intellect beats the desire, they become greater than angels. And if the desire beats the intellect, they become lower than animals. So here, this is where we need to understand. The human has a potential from one aspect to be so great, from another aspect to be so low. I reflect on myself. I'm not sure if I've reached that stage of being greater than angels. In fact, I feel like I'm far from that. So therefore, I have a lot of space to do what? To better myself. To come in a position where I'm closer to Allah Azza wa Jal. Do you know sometimes why that becomes the case? It is because of the arrogance we have that we think we are everything. Yet, Allah Azza wa Jal, with all of that, is still giving me that rope for me to hold on to, and He's pulling me towards Him constantly. What am I doing? I hold the rope for a bit, and then I let go. Like, you know what, let me rest here. I like where I am now. I'll come back to the rope in a bit. And Allah Azza wa Jal, what does He do? He keeps His hand out for us. Usually, if this was to happen, imagine someone is sinking within a sea or a river, and you throw something to them to hold on to. And then suddenly they see the waves start to calm down. You know, when it's wavy, we are deep in dua. When the waves relax, you're like, oh, do you know what? I like the feeling of the water today. I like where I am now. Leave me here for a bit. If this was to happen with a human being, he'd be like, stay there, it's fine. You sort out whatever you want to do. You want to stay there? Enjoy. Allah Azza wa Jal, what does He do? He says, you want to stay there for a bit? Wallah, it's not good for you. I promise it's not good for you. He keeps reminding me. I keep projecting to the extent where, do I not just keep projecting? I take that rope that He threw to me and I throw it back to Him. What does Allah do to me? He lets me, Ibraheim, I know you've transgressed against yourself, but I have just given you the opportunity of Shahr Ramadan. I'm like, thank you, my Lord. Yallah, I'll use it. During the month of Ramadan, I'm not barely holding on, barely leaving it, barely holding on, barely leaving it, until I come to the night of Qadr, and suddenly He gives me a massive rope. And He says, just hold on to this, and you'll see how much further you will come to the shore. That is a mercy. Can we just try to imagine this aspect that Allah Azza wa Jal is giving us? That is a mercy. Of the mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal is that not only did He order us for repentance, He is showing us the way for repentance. Not only did He tell us that come and think about me and think about how you can come back to me, He keeps saying to you, you are mine and I will be the one that takes care of you. In any way possible. That love He has given me is constant. And this is why I always urge people that do not understand the words of Dua Abu Hamza Thamali to read its translations. Because when you read its translations, you will find that within the words, the way Imam Zainul Abidin talks about his relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal, and the way he talks about how Allah Azza wa Jal keeps giving me while I keep rejecting. And suddenly I realize, it's so true. He keeps calling to me and I keep rejecting. Even in Dua al-Iftitah, these madhamin are there. These examples, this is what I'm talking about, is present in all the du'as of our imams. And hence it's important for us to focus on these du'as and understand them as lessons. He keeps reaching out to me, and what do? I'm far. Let us ask the question, why do we become so far? Why is it that I get to that point of saying, do you know what, I don't want to turn back yet? Sometimes it's because of how low we feel about ourselves because of our asiyah. You know, a sin upon a sin is one of the worst things a person can do. Because a sin upon a sin makes a person feel heavy. And when you feel heavy, you feel like you don't have the energy to stand up for worship anymore. That heaviness I feel on my shoulder tells me that, Ibrahim, you've done so much sin, you think Allah is even going to look at you? Whereas Allah keeps telling me the opposite. That idea needs to come out of our head. The reason being is because having that mindset is actually of the major sins a person can perform. Imagine, after all of those sins, that is of the greatest sins a person can perform. The other reason sometimes is arrogance. I become so arrogant in my sin. I enjoy my sin so much. It makes me so arrogant that I can't turn back to Allah Azza wa Jal. Do you know why that is? You will only feel arrogant if you think you're above everything. Otherwise you can't be arrogant. Arrogance can only be when you think you're above everything and everyone. Arrogance is of the most dangerous diseases a person can perform. When I think I'm above everything and everyone, that is when arrogance is. Do you know why I keep repeating that? Because when I feel that arrogance, do I truly believe I am above Allah Azza wa Jal? Before someone comes tells me, I know Allah is above me. If I know Allah is all one and His nature and His command is one part of His nature, then the command of Allah is what? One. The command of Allah is above me or below me. So now if I say, do you know what? I know Allah, you commanded me for something, but I'm not going to follow it. What is that? No arrogance? Iblis. Iblis comes on the day of judgment, in the story of Adam. Allah Azza wa Jal orders him that bow down to Adam, a worship that would have lasted seconds. Seconds. Bow down to Adam. He said, my Lord. Realize, what is he saying? My Lord. Meaning what? Iblis was a person who believed in Allah. Iblis, by the way, was a jinn. How high was his status? We just mentioned that a human, because they have desire and intellect, when their intellect beats their desire, what happens to them? They become higher than angels. Imagine how much Iblis worshipped Allah that Allah raised him to the status of the angels. Can we imagine? One moment of arrogance. He said, my Lord, you created him from mud. And you created me from fire. And you want me to bow down to him? Really? I am made from fire. I am so grand. He's made from mud. You want me to bow down to him? What was the result of that? The result is clear for you. The result is clear for you. Then what happens is that one point of arrogance, when we then feel we are punished for it, it increases us in arrogance. Why? Iblis at that point could have just turned around and say, okay, do you know what? I realize I've made a mistake. Let me perform istighfar. And Allah Azza wa Jal wouldn't reject an istighfar from an individual. What did he do? He said, لَأَغْوِيَنَّهُمْ أَجْمَعِينَ. I'm going to have that extra arrogance. What I'm going to do, not only did I sin, no, I'm going to make sure everyone else sins as well. This idea is so dangerous. When we have a command from Allah Azza wa Jal, when we have an order from Allah Azza wa Jal, and we put it to the side. By the way, the examples are many. The examples are many. Whether it is issues to do with our daily life, whether it is issues to do with our work. I mentioned yesterday in the Q&A with our dear sisters and aunties, I mentioned that of the things we need to think about sometimes is our work. If the workplace that we are in cannot help us with our Islamic belief system, our Islamic fiqh, then we can't be there. And I mentioned an example, for example, for those who are, for females who are in nursing or in the medical field. If they have to roll up their sleeves, is this part of hijab or not? Does it have to be covered or not? If it has to be covered but it has to be exposed, can she work there or not? Allah said so, Ibrahim. It's not something I said, Allah said. And likewise for men, there are similar examples. There are similar examples. Today I come and I work, for example, as a barber. And one of the community members comes to me and he is a follower of Sayyid Sistani, and the majority of our Maraja have this opinion. And he comes and tells me, shave my beard. And I shave his beard. Is this allowed or haram? Haram. These, by the way, these we have to say. We have to say these things. If we don't say them now, who's going to say them? These are things that are haram. These are orders from Allah Azza wa Jal. I can't go against them. But constantly going into them, these are day to day. Wallahi al-Azim, you are not allowed to put on makeup. There is not a single marja in this universe, even the most lenient of them, the most lenient of Maraja said you can't put on makeup. I don't need to name names. The most lenient of them said you cannot put on makeup. Makeup is haram. Showing your hair is haram. Showing your ankles is haram. These are simple examples, by the way, of day-to-day things that I'm mentioning. Swearing for the boys, it's haram. Haram, haram, mu makruh, haram, haram. We find many times in conversation, what happens is, there are a lot of swear words that are used, and it becomes part of the norm of society. Haram, majus. It's not allowed. Look at how many small sins we keep adding up. What can this cause for an individual? Imam al-Baqir alayhi afdal salatu wassalam says, when a person sins, a nukta sawda appears in their heart, a black dot appears in their heart. When they continue sinning, that expands until it takes over their heart. Imagine little dots, 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 dots. Now imagine, by the way, I mentioned little examples, so imagine these little examples adding up. Dot, 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 until you have the full heart is what? Taken over. What happens? Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. بَلْ رَانَ عَلَىٰ قُلُوبِهِمْ مَا كَانُوا يَكْسِبُونَ. Their heart has been fully taken over because of their own actions, because of what we are doing ourselves. Can we imagine the dangers of that? Now imagine with all of those sins, and Allah is still saying, no, this is the rope, hold on to it. Can we realize the mercy we are in? Can we realize the mercy that we are truly in? This vast mercy of Allah Azza wa Jal. But let that not fool us. Because sometimes we get into this idea of Allah Arhamur Rahimin. Hey, He is. But He's also Shadeed al-Iqab, by the way. This one we forget. Arhamur Rahimin, 100%. Shadeed al-Iqab comes with it. If He wants to punish, He will punish. So if someone comes to me and they'll tell me, oh Ibrahim, I swear, I do this sin, I wear makeup, I don't wear hijab, I do this, whatever. All these sins we mentioned. I do them. But Allah is still blessing me. That is the most dangerous thing in the world. If we are receiving so much blessings, let us do muhasabah of our nafs. Because receiving too much blessings in this world, the world wasn't made for it. The world wasn't made to receive so much blessings. Those blessings were meant for the hereafter. Not saying that a mu'min will not be in blessings. No, a mu'min will be filled with blessings. But that is because of their iman. عجبت للمؤمن, Imam al-Sadiq says, عجبت للمؤمن هو في خير سواء ملك الدنيا وما فيها أو نشر بالمناشير. I wonder for the believer, he is always upon goodness. Whether he owns the world and whatever is in it, or he is cut into pieces. A mu'min is always in that state. But think to yourself, maybe I am involved in a punishment by the name of Adab al-Istidraj. What a dangerous punishment this is. Do you know what Adab al-Istidraj is? Adab al-Istidraj is when Allah Azza wa Jal sees a person so happy in the sin that they are in, and He gives them more. He says, fine, happy. This is the lifestyle you want to live, take. And it keeps adding up, adding up, adding up, until one day he realizes, and on the day of judgment, he says to Allah, قَالَ رَبِّ ارْجُعُونَ, take me back. لَعَلِّي أَعْمَلُ صَالِحًا, maybe I will do something good. The reply of Allah Azza wa Jal is unbelievable. He says, كَلَّا إِنَّهَا كَلِمَةٌ هُوَ قَائِلُهَا. No. It is a word, he just uttered, he just said it. It's not a reality, you won't go back to it. This I am saying because we truly need to reflect. These nights of Qadr are not nights to be approached where we just do dua, 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 dua and we leave. It was never meant to be like that. Istighfar, 100 istighfar, very nice. Astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh, astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh. What does that even mean? What effect does that have on me? Just an amal I want to finish? Do less a'mal, but with a more sincere intention. And you'll find the effects to be better. My dua is not being accepted. There is no tawajjuh in dua to begin with. You know, with istighfar, I usually mention on the microphone on the nights of Qadr, let us think of sins. With these istighfar, let's say do 100 istighfar. For every 10, think of a sin. Whatever it may be. When I think of that sin, however, let it not be astaghfirullah Rabbi wa atubu ilayh because I used to swear. And then literally the 10 minutes after I'm talking to my friend and I started swearing at him. That doesn't make sense. Istighfar is when I tell Allah Azza wa Jal and make a promise with Him that I will never go back to that sin. That can only be when we understand the magnitude of our sin. The way we can understand the magnitude of our sin, no matter how small it is when we understand our relationship with Allah Azza wa Jal. We are but less than a dot. What's the smallest thing that we have? An atom. Smaller than an atom is a quark, right? Quark. Is there anything smaller than that? Quark is the smallest, no? We are smaller than a quark. Compared to Allah Azza wa Jal, this infinite being, we are smaller than a quark. Nabiullah Isa, what a great messenger, prophet. How does he describe himself? قال إني, I'm but a slave of Allah, not a servant. A slave. A servant usually gets recompensation for what they do. A slave, la, he's there to just be in a state of complete worship. That is, so imagine I'm a slave, and now imagine everything that Allah has given me. I am but a slave, and now imagine everything Allah has given me. How far have I transgressed against Allah Azza wa Jalla? How far have I come? Imagine with all of that, and then Allah Azza wa Jalla comes to me in this manner. He says, you're my slave, whether you sin or not, you're still mine. Because he says, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. Say, O my slaves who done israf against themselves. Realize he didn't say, O my slaves who have sinned. He said, say, O my slave who have gone a bit too far. You know, when you're talking to a sinner, Allah could have said, oh, you who have sinned, this and that. He's talking to sinners. He's saying, Habibi, first of all, Ibadi, this Ya at-Tamlik, you're still mine. I still encompass you. He's embracing us. He's saying, you're mine. الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ. You've gone a bit too far. What about you? لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Do not despair from the mercy of Allah. And He's reminding you of who we are worshipping. He's saying, you're my slaves, don't forget I'm Allah, by the way. لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. Do not despair from the mercy of Allah. How beautiful is this verse? Imagine, this by itself gives us a complete meaning, correct? Complete meaning, you understand what Allah tells us now? It wasn't enough for Him. إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَغْفِرُ الذُّنُوبِ. Allah forgives sins. When I say Allah forgives sins, can you think of a sin that He wouldn't forgive? He said, forgive sins, plural, meaning it would encompass all sins. And even then, He said, جميعا, all of them. In case you have a doubt, because I heard a yes. In case you have a doubt that there might be a sin that might not be forgiven, I'm going to tell you, no, جميعا, all of them I will forgive. We have a full meaning of the verse? Very good. Allah said, no, I'm going to give you more. إِنَّهُ هُوَ الْغَفُورُ الرَّحِيمُ. He gives you two characteristics of mercy and of ghufran, of forgiveness. He is the all-forgiving, all-merciful. Can we imagine how much love we're receiving from Allah Azza wa Jalla? And how much are we truly giving back? This I want you to have in your mind. Do you want to know what it looks like for a person who gives back? Do you want to understand a person who gives back, how that life would look like? One day, there was a scholar, and I will end with the story, inshallah. There was a scholar who was thinking to himself. He was saying, Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, his ziyarah is mustahab on the night of Qadr. His ziyarah is mustahab on Eid. His ziyarah is mustahab on 15th of Sha'ban. His ziyarah is mustahab 1st of Rajab, 15th of Rajab. Everything in every calendar we have, mustahab. And on the day of Arafah, not only is it mustahab to do his ziyarah, but Allah looks at the visitors of Imam al-Hussein before he looks at his own guests in Arafah. So he kept thinking, how is that the case? Such a thing we don't even have for our beloved Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. This isn't even present for the Prophet. So he performed some a'mal in Masjid al-Sahla, wanting to meet Imam al-Mahdi to receive an answer from him. He finished his a'mal for 40 days, or 40 Tuesdays rather. He kept waiting for the Imam and he couldn't find him. Until a man came to him and said to him, "O Sayyid, can I sit down with you for a bit?" Thinking to himself, I'm waiting here. I said, I'm not really doing much. Fine. He said to him, can I tell you a story? He said, tell me a story. He said, there was a king. That king used to go out hunting. When he used to go out hunting, his soldiers would go with him, his ministers would go with him. One day he went out hunting and he saw a deer. He started chasing after this deer. Chasing, until he lost everyone that was with him. He found himself in the middle of the desert with no one around him. He looked, he saw a tent. When he saw that tent, he said, maybe I can go get some water from there. So he went. He called, is there anyone inside the tent? Is there anyone inside the tent? A lady comes out. She said to him, I'm alone in this tent, so leave me alone. When my son comes, he said, I'm just thirsty. She said, fine. She gives him a cup of water. She said, and then he said, I'm hungry as well. She said, look, my son is out hunting. It is not appropriate for you to enter my tent if you just stay waiting outside. When he comes back with that which he has hunted, we will cook for you and you can eat with us. So Jazakumullah khair, he stays outside. The son comes back empty-handed. The mother looks at him, she says to him, oh my son, we have a guest, we have to give him something. He said to her mother, we only have one goat left, and that goat is what we use for milk and what we use for to make things out of the milk that we get. That's all we have left. She said, slaughter it. He had one goat left, he slaughtered it, and he fed the king, and he slept over. The next day he left, he went back to the city. Before he went back to the city, he gave them a note. He said, whenever you are in need, come back to the city and ask for my name. Everyone still with me? Yes? So we started eating from that goat, eating from that goat. He goes out hunting every day. The son can't find anything to hunt. Until the goat finished. Now they have what? No food and no milk. All they have left is what? Water. The mother said to the son, said, did the king not say, did that man not say that ask for me in the city if you are ever in need? Now we're in need, let's go. We've been without food for a long time. He said, fine. They went to the city. Imagine, they are in their Bedouin clothing. They enter the city, everyone's looking at them. They ask for the king's name. Everyone starts laughing at them. Do you even know who you're asking about? I said, we don't know, it's a man we met. He said, ask for me. Until they met someone, he said, look, there's a castle over there, that's where he lives. This person doesn't even know who he's going to. He goes, the guard looks at the way they are dressed. He says, where are you guys going? He said, we'll have a meeting with the king. He started laughing at him. He said, look, go ask him, this is our name. He goes, the moment the king heard they were at the gate, he ordered them to let them in immediately. When they walked in, the king got up and he brought this young man and he sat him in his seat. Everyone was surprised. So they said to him, "O king, what is it that you're doing?" He said, "Look, do you remember when we went out hunting and I stayed the night, etc.?" They said, "Yes." He said, "This young man slaughtered the only goat he had. And now he's come with a need. What should I give him?" His ministers began talking. One of them said, "You're the king. He gave you one goat, give him one goat back." The other said, La, because he's the king, هو غصباً عليه, he gives him a goat. For him, you don't need to give anything back. He gave you a goat, you don't need to give him anything back. Another person said, no, you're the king. So because he gave you one goat, you give him 100. Everyone started giving suggestions. The king looked at them, he said, are you guys done? They said, yes. He said, this young man, he gave me one goat, but that one goat was everything that he owned. Therefore, it is only right for me to give him everything that I own. So he took off his crown and he put it on the head of this young man. This young man said to him, oh, hold on a second. I come from the deserts. I don't know how to lead a country. He said, okay, in that case you will have a palace like my palace, and you will have slaves like my slaves, and you will live just like I live. The Sayyid is looking at this man that is giving the story. He said to him, yes, continue. He said to him, Sayyidina, you want me to continue? He said, a king, a young man gave him a goat, and this is how he respected that action. What about Imam al-Hussein, who gave everything that he had? Do you expect Allah to not give him everything? He said, Imam al-Hussein stood on the plains of Karbala and gave even a 6-month-old infant. And you expect Allah Azza wa Jal to not compensate him for that? Which is why of the greatest a'mal on the night of Qadr is to do ziyarah of Imam al-Hussein. And of the greatest ways to take away those sins that we were talking about is crying for Imam al-Hussein. The tear for Imam al-Hussein breaks whatever sin there is, even if it is the size of a mountain. Ajib. What did Imam al-Hussein receive by Allah Azza wa Jal? A tear. The narration says, even if it is the size of the wing of a fly, the wing of a fly, it removes all sins. Of the greatest deeds for a person to do, the size of the wing of a fly. What did Imam al-Hussein do? What did he receive? What state are we truly in? Let us reflect upon these words. Let us make maximum use of these nights of Qadr, these nights that were so special to the Imams and the Ahlul Bayt. Look at how they turned to Allah Azza wa Jal, and let us follow in their footsteps. For when I look at this household, I remember the lines of poetry that are mentioned about this great household, the Ahlul Bayt, where the poet would say, مدارس آيات خلت من تلاوته ومهبط وحي مقفر العرصات لآل رسول الله بالخيف من منها وبالركن والتعريف والجمرات ديار عفاها جور كل منابذ ولم تعف للأيام والسنوات ديار علي والحسين وجعفر وحمزة والسجاد ذي الثفنات قبور بكوفان وأخرى بطيبة وأخرى بفخ لها صلوات وإن بارك الله بك. ذني أي ليالي القدر من المستحبات في هذه الليلة البكاء على الحسين. بارك الله بك بالون وبالأن قبور بكوفان وأخرى بطيبة وأخرى بباخمرها لدى الغربات بغداد لنفس زكية ألحت على الأيام والسنوات وقبر بطوس يا لها من مصيبة وقبر بطوس يا لها من مصيبة ألحت على الأيام والسنوات قبورا بجنب الشط من أرض كربلاء معرس فيها بشط فرات ياتي توفوا عطاشا بالفرات فليتني توفيت فيهم قبل حين ياتي فاطم يا ابنة الخير قومي واندبي نجوم سماوات بأرض فلاتي فاطم لو خلت الحسين مجدلا وقد مات عطشانا بشط فراتي ذل لطمت الخد فاطم عنده وأجريت دمع العين في الوجناء ياتي عندما قرأ هذا البيت تعبر الخزاعي للإمام الرضا لطم رأسه وقال اي والله اي والله اي والله اقول هذا حال الزهراء وماذا عن زينب ونساء الحسين عندما رأينا ذلك الجواد يوم عاشوراء إمام المهدي وصف هاي الحالة ولما رأينا النساء جوادك مخزيا ونظرنا السرج عليه ملويا برزنا من الخدور لاطمات وبالعويل داعيات وإلى مصرعك مبادرات بأية حالة كأني بسكينة قلبك بيوم عاشوراء كأني بسكينة والله جت سكنة لأبوها حسين تمشي تقول لأبويا أنا لما جيت ترضى من أبكي شقل للناس بويا شحكي لو قالوا تدللك وين تقول له من سكنة العزيزة دللتني وبيدك يا ابويا ركبتني انا شقل للناس ويا شحكي لو قالوا تدللك وين امر الحسين بارجاع العيال رجعوا الى تلك الخيام ولكن ماذا عن زينب الإمام الباقر يقول له شلون 1900 جرح صحيح؟ يقول له طعنة على طعنة وضربة على. أنا لقيت 1900 جرح ما هو جرح واحد وداوي، ما أدري يا جرح الأشدة ويا جرح أخليه. قال لي يا زينب كل جرح بعضاي عوفي، والله بس جرح اللي بقلبي عينك عليه بهيدا يا زينب لا تلجمي. الراي 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 أنا جيتك فاجد الراي. على حال زينب عند جسد الحسين بأية حالة وصلت، تقول أنا جيتك فاجد الراي ومن الرعب تتراجف عظام. أنا جيت وعلي أعداي تومي يقولون هاي أم الخدر، هاي أخت الذبيح الما شرب ماي. شو تقول يا ابن أمي ويا رجواي؟ أنا ابنتك جيلك بيمن هاي تقدر ترد يا حسين وين. بعد البيت وأسألك الدعاء، أكو بيت يوصف حال السيدة زينب مع أخيها الحسين يكسر القلب، يفطر للقلب. لسان حال زينب تخاطب الحسين شو تقول له؟ تقول له خويا حسين طولت النوم، طولت النوم أنا منين أجيلك والطرق مرزومة. تقول له خويا حسين حيرتني بطيحتك أنا منين أجيلك شلون أعوف أنا عيلتك. فطرت قلبي يا خويا بونتك منين أجيلك والطرق مرزومة. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون والعاقبة للمتقين. اللهم إنا نسألك بأحب الخلق إليك، اللهم بالزهراء وأبيها وبعلها وبنيها والسر المستودع فيها يا الله. اللهم اقض حوائج المحتاجين، اللهم شاف المرضى، اللهم عجل في فرج مولانا صاحب العصر والزمان، واجعلنا من أعوانه وأنصاره ومن المستشهدين من بين يديه برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم لا تحرمنا من هذه النعمة، نعمة البكاء على الحسين ونعمة إحياء ليالي القدر. أسأل الله عز وجل أن يعيدكم جميعا إلى هذا العمل الصالح في كل سنة إن شاء الله بحق محمد وآل محمد. اللهم تقبل أعمالنا بأحسن قبولك، الحضور تقبل اللهم عملهم بأحسن قبولك، المؤسسين تقبل اللهم عملهم بأحسن قبولك. إلى أرواح أمواتي مع أموات الحاضرين، أموات شيعة أمير المؤمنين، رحم الله من يقرأ السورة المباركة الفاتحة تسبقها الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.